But Mike, I'm speaking of bowls, and we were talking about, some of the terms I think they get thrown around are probably a little bit loose. Oh, bowls don't mean anything, and this, that, and the other. And sometimes they don't. Like, I don't think that bowl meant much to Alabama, but we certainly know what it meant to both Illinois and Carolina when they played in last 1 week ago today down in Orlando. But I do think like there are other examples out there, and one of them is a program we talked about 25 minutes ago, the Florida Gators, because we were talking about Lennar Sellers. Lagway got brought into the conversation. Florida finished with 4 straight wins, including the 33-8 victory over, I think, a pretty good Tulane team in the Gasparilla Bowl. And if you go back to the middle of the season, when we started the year, how many of these conversations do we have? Napier ain't going to make it. Well, he did. And then he got an extension, or at least they put their confidence behind him or whatever it was. And then they won the last 4 games of the year. And yesterday we brought up the fact that South Carolina is in Andy Staples' top 10 next year at number 7. What we didn't bring up is the Florida Gators are in Andy Staples' top 10 next season as well. It's January. None of this crap matters.
No.
But the point is that never happens for Carolina ever. And we are just maybe 2 months removed from, is Billy Napier actually even going to make it through the season? They win the rest of their games, and now there's people who I respect, like Andy Staples, putting them on a little bit of a pedestal, saying, yeah, this team might be careful with those Florida Gators. They did beat Ole Miss in that 4-game winning streak, by the way. So you look at bowl season and what matters and what doesn't matter. It mattered to them, and they finished the right way. Just like almost like South Carolina did. Vanderbilt, by the way, finished the right way. It mattered to them in that one too.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it mattered to just about every SEC team I saw play. Ole Miss got a little bit cute because they knew they could. Duke didn't have a quarterback, so Ole Miss is like trying every gadget play in the universe because Lane likes to let everybody know he doesn't give 2 Fs about anybody or anything or how you care about them. But no, I thought, look, Alabama was motivated to play. Jalen Milroe just laid an egg.
Yeah.
He 3 turnovers in the first quarter, but they were trying to win, and he certainly was trying to play well because he's out in the NFL draft, and somehow he's ranked. I mean, I know how, but he's projected as the 3rd quarterback, 4th quarterback off the board. But if you're turning it forward to next year, I mean, we all do the same thing. All the magazines that come out, and we'll have Andy Staples on JC and Morgan again, and we'll have Phil Steele on again. And you look at returning starters, and it starts at quarterback. So who's got the established quarterbacks coming back in the SEC? Mm-hmm. So obviously Sellers, Lagway, Nussmeier, Pavia. Okay, that makes Vanderbilt at least relevant. No one's going to put them in the top 10 or even the top 20, I wouldn't think, but they're relevant because of Diego Pavia, who's a difference maker. I don't care if that kid wouldn't get drafted in 30 rounds. He's a good college football player. He's exactly what they needed. Right. And then I think there's a big, what exactly is Nico in Tennessee? You're either buying stock on him, or maybe you sold some shares after what you saw in the second half of last year. Ole Miss will have a new guy, although he has had reps, had a big touchdown drive in that Georgia game when Dart got dinged up. A&M, who's A&M going to have?
Well,
off the top of my head now.
It'll be the what's his name that came in and against South Carolina. His name escapes.
Oh yeah.
Marcel Reed. I just wrote down all 16 projected starters, guys.
Okay.
You didn't ask me.
Well, we were getting.
You thought I was going to keep talking about Stallone.
Hey,
we never knew you were going.
And don't get to my question now. I'm going to tee Mike up with the question I asked Alex.
I'm not going to answer
yet. Hey, is Brady Cook back next year? Does he have
no? He's
how about new? He's gone. Good.
Yeah. And my guess is they'll go portal.
They did. They got Bo Pribula from Penn State.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Who was Penn State's backup but played a role. I don't know. But, so I'll just go through them. Alabama projected as Ty Simpson. I'm going to make a really bold prediction here and say Keelan Russell, their true freshman, will be starting maybe by the time they come to Columbia in October. Jackson Arnold, presumptive starter at Auburn. Taylon Green is back at Arkansas. Lagway is back, as we talked about. And I got a point to make about Florida. I'll make it in the next hour. Gunnar Stockton at Georgia. Kentucky looked like they were getting Malik Murphy. I guess they passed. He's at Oregon State. Zach Calzada, remember him?
Yeah,
beat Alabama as the A&M starter and then got shuffled on out. He's there. He's all they got. Garrett Nussmeier at LSU. Mississippi State got Luke Kromenhoek. That was the 5-star guy that was at Florida State.
Oh, yeah.
Was the young guy this year. Missouri got Bo Pribula. Oklahoma, John Mateer from Washington State. Ole Miss projected starter, unless Lane gets somebody out of the portal, which with the Quinn Ewers thing, I would watch Ole Miss. If he does end up transferring, this could all change. Right now, it's their backup Austin Simmons, who they like. You know more player too. You know more than I do on that, Mike, because you've spent more time in Oxford than I have.
They're very high on him.
Sellers at South Carolina, Nico at Tennessee, Marcel Reed at A&M, Ewers / Manning at Texas, and Diego at Vandy. So there's not as many known guys this offseason as last.
Well, if you remember, we talked about it going into this past season. It was a 50-50 split. You had 8 established guys in the SEC starting at quarterback, and then you had 8 newcomers, or basically guys that were a first-year starter. Mm-hmm. So you can kind of go back and, I guess, fill out a report card on how that all wound up. Nobody saw Diego Pavia coming. That's for damn sure. And then I thought Nico was a disappointment. I thought Milroe was a disappointment. I thought Carson Beck was a massive disappointment. You had the kid at Florida got hurt. That paved the way for Lagway. Auburn, you had a guy coming back that nobody thought was any good, and he wasn't any good again.
Talon Green was a turnover machine a lot of times at Arkansas.
Yeah, Green was one of those guys. I remember at media days, like, oh, you look at him, he's 6'6", and he's 240, and who's going to stop him? Well, he's going to stop himself because he's a turnover machine, and he was for Arkansas. So,
yeah, it's interesting when you look, and obviously the quarterbacks. I mean, just like we said yesterday, when you have star players, and one of those star players is your quarterback, truly star, like not like, well, we think he's going to be a star. Like Lenore Sellers was a star down the stretch in big moments, in particular in the upstate. They got him so much notoriety. When you have that, you're going to be on the radar, whether that's fair, unfair, whatever it is. And I find it interesting because when you go and you look at where things finished, right? In the Southeastern Conference this season, after bowl season, you go and you look at records, and you look at records compared to who was supposed to be who, and where they ended up finishing. And South Carolina, of course, wasn't projected to win 4 or 5 games. They won 9. The Gators, I think their under was around 5.5, if I remember correctly. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong there. I think it was 5.5.
5.5, and Napier was the odds-on favorite to be the first coach fired out of the league. And Pittman was second, and they're both back.
and they finish at 8-5, right? And so generally those are the teams who won more games than they were supposed to win, who return star players, in particular at that position, the quarterback, who will receive the most hype. So, like, while we hear this is what we do, this is our little world, inside the Gamecocks, Chief Sports, Palmetto State, are going to be focused in the offseason about how much hype this train is going to get, the Cockaboos. That one down there in Gainesville is going to get some pretty good hype too, with Billy Napier, and they don't play next year. Might I?
Cautionary tale. We'll tell you the story of the 2019 Tennessee Vols. Expectations were low on Rocky Top. Jarrett Garantano was the quarterback, but it was year 2 of the Jeremy Pruitt era, and they started 2-5 and lost to Georgia State at home in the opener. Times were tough there, but guess what? Old Jeremy turned it around and won 6 straight games and beat the snot out of who? Iowa in the bowl game. And everybody's like, Tennessee's back, boys. Woohoo! Muskets and raccoons, and many a raccoon were skinned and moonshine drunk. The next year, what happened? They started 2-0, and this was the pandemic year, so maybe I'm not being fair, and then lost 7 straight games before beating Vanderbilt, and Jeremy Pruitt got fired and disaster ensued. Now, there was an NCAA investigation and some other things that happened. Maybe Billy Napier could avoid it, but beware the team and the coach that was on thin ice that miraculously turns it around in season and everybody's happy for a little bit. This happened here in 1992 with Sparky Woods. Lest I remind everyone, guys, between 92 and 93 with Tannehill coming back and then the opening win at Georgia, the Gamecocks were like, what's so hard about the SEC? And then they found out for 8 years. Cautionary tale.